Scott Arniel, you were named head coach of the Winnipeg Jets almost exactly 12 years after last having that same role in the NHL. I'm curious, what was your overarching emotion to get another crack?
I'm so excited. It's obviously something that I've been working for a while, and just kind of going through the years, hoping that you get a second opportunity, and then for it to come here in Winnipeg, a place I started a long time ago. It's a thrill. For me, it's a thrill for me and my family, and so excited for it to start.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask the next question. Winnipeg, by my count, I think this is your seventh different stint working there or playing there, going way back to 1981, various roles with the Manitoba Moose. You're obviously quite familiar with the city. You make it your off-season home, but for it to get a second opportunity and to be in that market, that place, does it just mean that much more?
Yeah, I was drafted here in 81, came here as a young 18-year-old kid, and got a chance to start my NHL player dream here. And then as years went on and, got to become a coach. I actually started coaching here with the Moose with Randy Carlisle way back. And then, it's been 43 years or something. It's a big circle, and, to come back to be, the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, I know it's 2.0, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, if you're going to pick a spot for me, when the Jets came back, and I was in coaching when it happened, it was one of those things that, man, that'd be unbelievable to have the opportunity someday. Didn't know how everything was going to play out, how it was going to work. It took a few years, but it's happened, and now we get to live it.
That's so exciting. You spent the last 2 years working with Rick Bowness and his staff. What did you see on the bench, and what makes you think that you're the right guy to take this team over at this point?
Yeah, well, I interviewed 2 years ago for the head job as well, and obviously they gave it to Rick, and it ended up working out. They asked me if I wanted to stay and work with Rick. I'm not sure if I would have done it with anybody else. Rick and I have a relationship that goes back to 81. We played together. He coached me as assistant coach, a head coach for me as well, and then just our friendship over the years. So when we came in, we had kind of a plan. We had to, obviously there were some things that had to get fixed here, and starting in our dressing room and kind of our team itself, and we kind of, had to put a lot of time and effort into all of that stuff. I got to grow with Rick over the last 2 years with our team here, and we had, we reaped a lot of the benefits. This past year had a fantastic 82 games. Playoffs still need some work, but at the end of the day, we got to implement a lot of things together, and Rick gave me a lot of leeway. We had talked about, what may happen down the road type thing, but at the end of the day, he's was such a good mentor for me, and I got to build relationships with the players. So much different than being hired. If I had been hired 2 years ago and then having to just implement everything else myself right there, this is a whole different. We're already down the road a ways, and so my relationships are already built. I like a lot of the system-wise that we're doing. There's, especially without the puck, there's some things I really need to, want to implement with us more offensively. Our specialty teams, I need to make sure that those get a lot better. So it's a lot. I'm a lot farther along than maybe I would have been if I had taken over 2 years ago.
Yeah, the relationships are a great point, right? You're able to hit the ground running just from a pure stylistic standpoint. And you mentioned, just a couple of those small changes that we might see. But by and large, is it fair to say that we could expect the Jets to try and attack the game the same way? Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that, I've always been, the big on the offensive side of things as well, and kind of teaching a style. I think that, for us, we were still good numbers. We had good numbers this year offensively, but I'd like, at the end of the day, you got to score goals in this league, and whether that comes 5-on-5 or on your power play, it's an area that we have to get better at. But in saying that, we don't want to take anything away. The biggest thing that we installed our group and our buy-in from especially our top players, is playing without the puck, our defending, recognizing that when the other team doesn't have the puck, obviously it's in our hands, and how hard we have to work and the things we have to do to make sure that, we're not giving up chance. We didn't win the Jennings by luck. It was by, our players really buying into, what we needed to do to have success, especially over 82 games, which is such a hard schedule for everybody. So now to throw some offense on top of that, some ideas, thoughts, maybe just little tweaks here and there, but hopefully it'll help each individual player offensively, which is going to help our group.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Jennings and how the Jets were the best defensive team in the NHL this season. When you take a look back at what happened in round one, how do you diagnose it?
Well, probably the first would be specialty teams, not so much our power play, our penalty kill. It's an area that it was good 2 years ago. This past year, it dropped off. I also have to recognize that, Makar and McKinnon, Rantanen, even Natushkin at the time, that was what they did in that power play, just the fact of how it wasn't anything special. It wasn't any set plays. It was just they got the puck to the net front. And, we hadn't really seen that kind of traffic, that kind of sort of look. Same thing 5-on-5. Colorado did a really good job. We beat them late in the year. Dallas beat them. Right, I think their last 3 games are us, Dallas, and Vegas. And I think that, there was some changes made to their game a little bit. They really became where they're known for their rush and their speed. They became more of a dump and go get it. And they threw pucks in the net as much as they could. They had bodies there, and we didn't do a real good job defending that, where we're usually, like you said, we're really good defensively with winning the Jennings, but we got away from our real solid defensive zone coverage. We weren't heavy on top like we usually are. Our box outs weren't great around the front of the net. So those are areas that the guys knew it too, and it was something that hopefully we learned that lesson, so we get into that picture next year that we learn from it.
Mm-hmm. When you have a team that gets knocked out in round one, there's some coaches that I think probably like to stick their head in the sand and get a break for a week or two. I'm curious how much you watch the playoffs as they go on. This is at times a copycat league. Are you looking for trends? The big thing coming out of the last few playoffs was, hey, you got to transition to the zone defense. Are you a believer in the zone defense? Do you watch out for different things that make teams successful at this time of year?
Yeah, you know what? I've been doing that for 12 years, trying to build my brand, kind of watching other teams. I love watching the playoffs. I love, watching teams have success, or how they have success. And then you got to, obviously, you can't just keep sort of changing every year as the league changes, but you do have to make sure that you're up to date on things happening. And I do, I look at our 5 games. I've already watched our 5 games. I think I've watched a couple of games twice. Games 3 and 5, I really looked at a little bit more closely, but I've looked at a lot of that. But I'm following what's happening around the league, and you can see the trends. You can kind of see what's going on. Yeah, that the defending side of things. There's like I say, every year this league kind of has its own kind of look to it. Whether it's penalty kill, guys going from a trap down into a more of a diamond look, or whether it's D zone coverage where it's man on man, which we saw Tampa win 2 Stanley Cups going man on man with a little bit of a swarm low. Vegas winning last year by playing sort of 5 tight, kind of more of a lower quadrant type setup. So now you're watching Edmonton and Florida. Florida has that pressure that they put on you all the time, and so it's real interesting kind of catching these teams that are having success, how they go about it. So I haven't had a day off yet here, so we're just kind of still through hiring a staff and then still watching these games. I've already talked to our assistants there. We'll be going back, and each guy will kind of maybe take a team in the final 4, and Ken will look at that and maybe look at it in August and see what we think about stuff to implement for us.
You mentioned the last 12 years and kind of building your brand. I'm curious, I just heard Sheldon Keefe talk about this going from Toronto to New Jersey. He goes, I'm a different coach than I was 5 years ago. I'm a better coach. What's changed about Scott Arniel in the last 12 years? What have you added to sort of your repertoire? And do you think you're a better coach now than you were 12 years ago?
Oh, definitely. You know what? You get humbled. It was the worst thing I ever heard said to me was, you're not a coach until you get fired. And it was like, you're going to get your hair up on the back of your neck. But I'll tell you what it does, it makes either one of 2 things. Either you're going to go put your nose to the road and get working, or you're going to quit. And there's no chance I was going to quit. It's all about learning from other coaches, from other teams, being in situations. I got to go to the Rangers right away. With Alain Vigneault, we went to Stanley Cup. We had some great teams there, had some good teams in Washington. What you do is just you got to, get back and, really sort of make sure that, there's a better version of you the next time you get that chance. And 12 years ago, maybe a little bit more of what the coaches say is kind of what the law is that day. And I think now there's so much more of what's going on with players and players wanting to be involved. Whether it's free agents, guys want to have say in different things that are going on. The amount of money that you're throwing out to these top guys, you need to do it, and it's really that relationship building. It's making sure that you have correspondence with these guys all the time. That's the biggest thing. One of the great things I've learned some great things over the years with different coaches. Rick's ability to communicate every day with players, it doesn't stop. In media, or it's guys, his neighbors or somebody walking down the street. He's such a social guy, but at the end of the day, that communication with players is vital, and it's an area I needed to get better at. But I think I've really done that over 12 years. It hasn't just been the last few. And then, I'm when it comes to the detail side of things, just when I first got that job, it was like, okay, I had the answers. I thought I had the answers, and then you learn real quick that there's some really smart coaches out there, and there's some really good hockey players, and so it becomes now making sure that you recognize that if, like we talked earlier, if change has to be made, if it's systematic, if it's individual, if it's line mates, whatever it might be, that you make those changes for the better of the hockey club.
I'm curious, Scott, who you've leaned on over these last 12 years, maybe just from a relationship, mentorship perspective. Who are some of the coaches out there that have been really, maybe just not even ones that you worked with or for, but around the league that have, hey, I'm going to, phone this guy up and pick his brain. People have been generous with their time to help you continue to learn.
Well, I'll just name them but there, like you said, there'll be a few others, but like for me, it started with Randy Carlisle, and then Lindy Ruff. Then I was with Alain Vigneault. Then I got to work with Pete Laviolette. And then working with Bones. Like, those are all veteran quality guys. But the other side of it is I got to work with some outstanding assistant coaches along the way that have, helped me as well, kind of watch how they maybe present, how they handle themselves on the ice, how they handle themselves with players. The other side is the players, the amount of great players, the amount of good players, the amount of good people I've been being around. It just doesn't have to be star players. It's being around good people, and you kind of, you hear you listen to them talk, and you listen to them, what they like and what they expect from a coach, or what they want to do day to day. Some of them were hard lessons that they are maybe helping them with, or other situations, it's stuff that maybe you're learning from the players themselves and how they approach things. So in the 12 years, if you're not learning and being a sponge and kind of taking stuff from everybody, you're not moving forward. And you know what? I can even throw in management. There's some great management, some great management teams, scouts, different people you run into, whether it's at the draft, different, development camps, things like that. So I think you're always in a position to learn, just as long as you have your ears open and your mouth shut.
Mm-hmm. There's always been fantastic people around the Winnipeg Jets organization, but you mentioned the players, and I'm curious, like, I don't think he's necessarily gotten enough love or respect in terms of attention, but the work that Adam Lowry did over these last couple seasons, helping, communicate and everything that comes with the role of being captain. How much did you guys lean on him the last couple years, and now yourself, stepping into the head role moving forward? How much will you lean on him?
Yeah, it was a tough situation. Blake Wheeler did a fantastic job here being the captain. But we needed to move forward. We just needed to transition. It was a situation, he had been here a while, and we weren't sure what the future was going to look like with Blake. And so at the end of the day, for us, we went through a year without a captain, and we just kind of wanted to let things kind of evolve and kind of listen and watch. And you could tell amongst his teammates that Adam was the guy that they all deferred to. But when we made him the captain, the biggest thing was that we really had hoped that it didn't put too much of a strain on him, that it didn't put too much pressure on him, because it is a Canadian market. The circumstances coming in here, but he handled it tremendously, and he really did. He didn't suffer on his game, didn't suffer on the ice. He made sure that he was a good player first before, anything else. And his off-ice stuff that he does with all the young guys, the charity work he does around town is amazing. He's just he is the ultimate captain for the Winnipeg Jets in a Canadian market, and he leaves it all on the ice every night. And then the other side too, he's great with us as coaching staff, just to be that, the go-between with the players. And I have to throw in Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey as well, who we were talking about, maybe possibly being captains as well. But those three guys obviously really took over that dressing room. We had some other veteran guys that helped with our leadership group. But where we are today, maybe where we were a couple of years ago, it's been an awful lot of Adam Lowry and our leadership group that's pushed us forward.
It's not an easy transition that Adam Lowry made. I'm curious, just the transition for you going from assistant to head coach. To me, I kind of laugh every time I hear it, that people say, it's hard to go from being the assistant to being the head guy, or in your case, the associate to the head guy. And I'm wondering if maybe because of what your team went through last year, a period of time twice where Rick Bowness wasn't, he had different obligations that he had to tend to. Does that help in your case, or does having been a head guy previously, does that help as well as you go from the same group, or mostly the same group of players, to now, leading them next year? Yeah,
I think obviously having experience like I have, I've been in the NHL for 16, 17 years and doing this coaching for 23 is, helped me a lot, going through different circumstances. But those situations 2 years ago and then last year, being able to be the head coach, it was like our first round draft pick, getting to play 6 exhibition games and then starting on opening day and playing those games. For me, it's given me a chance to kind of, get myself back into it in the heat of it, right in the middle of the tough part, or, at any time of the season. And I got to show myself, or my qualities, or how I like to coach, or how I do things to the players, and they responded. And that was the big part, is that they responded to how I kind of went about things at the time. More so this year, we weren't sure about Rick. We weren't sure where this was all going, and it was serious stuff with Judy, and he wasn't sure if he was going to be back. So we had put everything moved forward. The coaching staff, we're moving along like Rick wasn't coming back, and we wanted to make sure that and the players knew that. And then so much to the credit to the players as well, about how professionally they handled it. And they could have very well just turned on us, or they could have just decided that they were going to do their own thing. And we didn't miss a beat. We kept going and doing the things that we had been doing earlier. And then it galvanized us all. It helped us all kind of. Them get to understand Scott Arniel, and me to really kind of show that I have head coaching qualities.
Sure. And you guys were right there challenging for the division title until the end. I want to ask you a couple quick hitters just about your roster. It's a big summer for a lot of players, but is there a bigger summer for anyone other than Cole Perfetti?
Yeah. You know what, Cole, I know the thing about everybody looks at, he sat out near the end, and it was hard because we made the Toffoli trade because we weren't sure about Gabe Vilardi, and then Gabe got healthy, and now we had abundance of sort of top 6 players. And, Fetz, he had a great year. And the thing about Fetz is that he hasn't played a lot of hockey until this year. He's never had a full season. He got hurt 2 years in a row. Obviously, the COVID situation with the team and all that. This was a big year for him, and I've had some great talks with him over there when I was coaching, and obviously even when Rick was back, I told him it's a long career. Like you're an NHL player now, and you've proven to yourself and to everybody else that you're an NHL player, and use this as part of that growth, that learning curve, like moving forward. And I think that he's handled it well, and I think that moving to next year, he's going to be that much better, and he's going to play a part in our hockey team. There's no doubt. The hard part was we couldn't play him our bottom 6 on that 4th line because our 3rd line was so good, and so he needs to be in our top 6, and that's what we envision him. That's where he needs to play, and I think next year you'll see him getting a lot more of that opportunity.
There's still a lot to be determined this summer. I'm curious how often, if you're sitting at the lake, do you jot down line combos on a napkin? What does that look like? And there seems to be a notion out there that, maybe it's tough at times to find a spot for Nick Ehlers to play in. Do you see it that way? And as someone that kind of scores as consistently as he does, may not be sort of pretty in terms of the pace or anything like that, but at the end of the year, he always ends up with 25 to 28 goals and 60 points. How do you find some solutions for Nick Ehlers when, maybe at this point it's been tough to do so?
Yeah, Nick's the one thing about Nick, he's a game breaker, and if you're going to get through 82 games and get it and try to eliminate 8 teams in your conference and get in the playoffs, you need those guys, and he's the type of guy that can break games open. And there was lots of times where, you know, the game would be tight or we'd be down a goal, and, you know, he could do things that others can't do. He pushes defense back. He has such great speed. You know, great. He actually has real good vision. It's for him. It's just you know, wanting to be making sure that, you know, he's playing that game all the time, and he's such a threat. He always has a spot in our top 6. I mean, that's a given. It just, you know, whether or not we move forward, obviously, he's a year away from, you know, free agency. So it's just a situation that, for me as a coach, I want him. I need him. I need that offense. I need that speed. The speed is probably the biggest factor for us, and you know, just we'll see how everything plays itself out. We've got some other big decisions, obviously, with our 2 defensemen, free agents with DeMello and Dillon, and then obviously Sean Monahan was, you know, such a major piece for us. Kind of solidified us down through the middle of the ice. We really became a deep team through the middle with him and Scheifele and Lowry, and then whether it was Kupari or, you know, whoever was on our fourth group. But at the end of the day, yeah, we've got like every team, you got decisions to make. You only have so much money to pass around, and that's what we'll have to figure.
Yeah, so that was my last question. Kevin Cheveldayoff is a collaborative guy. Obviously, you have a good working relationship with him. Is there, maybe not personnel-wise, meaning one player in particular, but is there something on Scott Arniel's wish list for the summer? What do you want?
Yeah, well, if I could, I'd like to have all my free agents back. You know, all of them. I think they're all, you know, big pieces of our success the last couple of years. And, you know, I think you always have to look to the future, right? We gotta get the job. I want to win a Stanley Cup now, but you have to also look what's happening, where you're going to be 2 years from now. I mean, we gave we gave up our first round pick for Monahan, but we also had Montreal's second, which was pretty close. It's not too far off of that pick. So, you know, you do things to kind of make sure that you cover yourself. I think that, you know, you got to build through youth as well. You got to make sure, you know, Dallas is a great example of those young guys stepping in, being ready to kind of fill some holes for some guys that might be departing this summer. And we need to be in a position to do that as well. But at the same time, you know, the selfish part as a coach, you got to win, and we have to. And getting back those, you know, our free agents would be huge for me.
Yeah, that would be huge. Scott, this conversation was huge. Thanks so much for joining me today. So glad to see you get another crack at NHL head coach, but more than that, to do it in a place where you have so many connections in Winnipeg. That's awesome.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Great talking to you.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.